All right, shalom, shalom. All right, I want to continue on in this book. This book got a lot of direct cuts. All right, page 165. George Carter, Professor Emeritus of Texas A&M University, has written in the Epigraphic Society occasional publications that a number of American Indian tribes preserve legends of elephants living in North America. Now, you know, elephants are from either Africa or North Africa or the Middle East, primarily Africa. But they had evidence that, or they had so-called legends that the Native Americans knew that there were elephants here. All right, it says, he writes, America is liberally sprinkled with pictures of elephants painted on a cave in Washington State in the rock art of the West, in Mayan glyphs where elephant heads appear as affixes at least 14 times in a Mexican codex. Was noted that a priest sacrificing a man wore an elephant headdress. Dr. Barry Fell's book, America BC, which I also have and I'm going to go into, also notes elephant motifs in both North and South America. His book shows an Ecuadorian artifact depicting an elephant with an accompanying North African Libyan script from the latter half of the 3rd century before Christ, and also depicts an image of an African elephant on an ancient artifact unearthed near Davenport, Iowa. Ancient rock carvings depicting elephants have also been documented in New Mexico and Oklahoma, confirming that inhabitants of the ancient Americas were obviously familiar with elephants. Mind you, elephants aren't as, they're not Americanized like horses and things. How did a big fucking elephant make it all the way over here? You have to think about these things. All right. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit in the book, because there's some important points that I want to make out of this book. It says, page 22, Israel was therefore a constitutional monarchy, God's laws being their constitution, as they rose to international prominence. After Solomon's death, the northern 10 tribes, led by Ephraim and Manasseh, seceded from the Union and formed a new nation which retained the majority of the population and the name of Israel and as its national name. The southern 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, joined by the priestly tribe of Levi, retained the old capital city of Jerusalem, but adopted the new national name of Judah. The nation of Judah, the Jews, was never again known by the national name of Israel. Israel adopted idolatrous, now it's talking about the northern kingdom, idolatrous Baalism, which, while Judah had a periodic revivals in which they worshiped the true God. By 721 BC, the Israelites were no longer in the land of Palestine, having been driven from their land by Assyrian invasions. The kingdom of Judah, the Jews, continued in Palestine until approximately 576 BC, when they were also removed from the land. The descendants of Judah, because they retained the Sabbath day and many traditions of God's laws, retained their identity and have been known throughout history as Jews. They also lost their Hebrew Israelite, it actually says Hebrew/Israelite identity, because many of them abandoned customs which would have identified them as Hebrews and Israelites. When the modern nation of Israel was formed by the Jewish people in 1948, it was settled by the descendants of the nation of Judah. This is a lie, of course. The national name of Israel was technically a biblical misnomer. If biblical precedent had been followed, the Jewish state in Palestine would have been named Judah, because these people claim that they're from the tribe of Judah. You see how, you know, the hypocrisy of the fucking white man? All right. But there's proof that people were in America before. Look at this. Page 25. Now let us examine some historical evidence of particular interest to modern American readers. The book Bronze Age America by the late Dr. Barry Fell, Professor Emeritus of Harvard University. You know, since this motherfucker Shaka Akmos won't listen to nobody that don't have a fucking Ivy League scholarship, Dr. Barry Fells, Professor Emeritus of Harvard University, says documents that copper trading between North America and the Old World existed prior to and during the reign of King David. So he can prove, he has evidence that King David traded or had some dealings in North America. His book cites evidence from the ancient inscriptions that Norse kings carried on a copper trade with the New World in the St. Lawrence River as early as 1700 BC, 7 centuries prior to the reign of King David over Israel. Dr. Fell documents the existence of ancient Phoenician inscriptions at a site known as Mystery Hill in New Hampshire. He observes that carbon analysis points to periods of occupation of the Mystery Hill site extending back to the 2nd millennium BC. One of the chambers at Mystery Hill was dedicated to the Phoenician god Baal. So in New Hampshire, they had a temple of Baal. And ancient inscriptions at this site indicate that it was inhabited and or frequented by ancient Celts, Iberians, and Phoenicians from the Old World over many centuries. Damn, that's a cut. The date of 1000 BC is most significant. The Encyclopedia Britannica states concerning King David's reign that it used to be reckoned from 1055 to 1015 BC, but it is now generally fixed at about 1010 to 970 BC. Remember what I said earlier? I forgot that it said it here. Harper's Bible Dictionary cites David's reign as being from 1010 to 970 BC. With this in mind, it is significant that these ancient Lake Superior copper mines were apparently worked to exhaustion during the reign of King David, precisely by the time frame in which King David was stockpiling copper ores beyond calculation for the construction of the temple for God. So some of the iron that went into the temple, what they call Solomon's temple, came from Lake Superior. That's crazy. The Bible declares that ancient Israel under King David was massively stockpiling copper ores around 1000 BC. Secular sources have confirmed that the North American copper mines ran out of ore about 1000 BC. And since no large numbers of copper artifacts have been recovered from American archaeological sites, they conclude that the missing metal may have been shipped overseas. So all the copper ore that was missing from Lake Superior, they didn't find it anywhere in America. So they conclude that it had to be shipped somewhere overseas. And if this was found missing during the time of King David, you know, it kind of proves the history, you know. And since, oh, I already read that. It must be remembered that the Phoenicians had the primary maritime shipping fleet at the time, and King David was closely allied to the Phoenicians. Allied, Salak. Let's see. Page 27. I think I already read 41. Oh, no, I didn't. A substantial colony of Semitic people was planted in America by the Phoenicians, as remains of their presence have been found in New England and other parts of America, with a large temple observatory site located at what has been known as Mystery Hill in northern Salem, New Hampshire. This site covered approximately 20 acres and included shrines dedicated to the Phoenician god Baal. Dr. Fell dated inscriptions at this temple of Baal to approximately 800 to 600 BC, although radiocarbon dating of charcoal samples from this site show it to have been inhabited back to the 2nd millennium BC. So this is 2000 BC. The ancient world knew about America. A dating of 800 to 600 BC includes the time when the Bible states Baal worship was widespread in both Israel and the Phoenician city-states. The ancient Old World Semitic civilizations built a large temple observatory complex in ancient America, and indicates that they were colonizing, not merely exploring ancient America. The ships of Tarshish were also regular callers in the New World, and inscriptions and tablets of their involvement in colonizing ancient America was preserved in Rhode Island, Ohio, and West Virginia. Apparently, ancient explorations and settlements were concentrated on the major inland waterways of America, as much of the evidence of their presence has been found in such locales. A major archaeological find, a stela inscribed with ancient Old World languages, was found in 1874 near Davenport, Iowa. Unfortunately, this New World equivalent of the Rosetta Stone was largely ignored because no one could read it. Interestingly, one of the reasons the stela was initially rejected was that it contained some signs resembling Hebrew and others resembling Phoenician. This ancient stela contains joint inscriptions in 3 ancient languages: Iberian Punic, a language related to and descended from Phoenician and Hebrew; Egyptian; and ancient Libyan. Oh man, this is a fucking cut. This is a fucking cut. The ancient Iowan stela does not reflect any worship of the true God, but rather depicts and describes a pagan sun worship ceremony involving human sacrifice. This supports the contention that the stela does not date from the reign of King Solomon, when God was honored, but dates from a more recent period, such as 850 BC, when these nations were all united in pagan practices. Another stela exhibiting an ancient Egypto-Libyan script was found on Long Island, New York. This inscription, according to Dr. Fell, probably dates from about the 9th century BC, 35, in his discussion of the inscriptions found on the Davenport and Long Island stelas. Dr. Fell notes clear similarities between the written script of the Micmac Algonquin Indians and that of ancient Egypt. Some of his analysis indicates that the Egyptians continued trading with ancient American inhabitants long after the kingdom of Israel fell to the Assyrians. Clearly, because the people here were Israelites. Additionally, another stela was unearthed in Oklahoma with references to the Phoenician and Egyptian gods of Baal and Ra, which, with an inscription described as an extract from the hymn to the Atan by Pharaoh Akhenaten, which dates from the 13th century BC. Near Albuquerque, New Mexico, there are ancient Hebrew inscriptions called Los Lunas inscriptions, which record on stone the Exodus 20 version of the 10 Commandments. Spooky stuff here. Page 50. Also, King Solomon's insatiable scientific curiosity, which included the desire to learn about the flora and fauna of foreign lands, would have caused him to be willing and eager to fund such international expeditions. A voyage of 3 years virtually mandates that this was a fleet devoted to world exploration, that it returned with samples of wildlife such as apes and peacocks. Salat argues that this fleet made stops in at least the continents of Africa and Asia during its extended voyages. It is possible that the Los Lunas inscriptions were made by Israelite Hebrew-speaking followers of the God of Israel who were refugees from the persecution of the various Baal-worshipping kings of either Israel or Judah. While this possibility would allow for a more recent dating of the New Mexico inscriptions, this possibility would still require a dating no more recent than the 6th century BC. In what was an apparent attempt to discredit the validity of the ancient Hebrew translation of the Los Lunas inscriptions, a series of artifacts were discovered, and it says discovered in parentheses, in the region of the Los Lunas inscriptions, and certain individuals asserted that these new artifacts in parentheses, indicated that the Los Lunas inscriptions were Greek, not Hebrew, and made by a Greek exile who was present in the New World around 500 BC. In a 1986 court trial, it was conclusively demonstrated by expert epigraphers and linguists that these other artifacts were hoaxes, which were shown to have actually been made since 1979. So stop fucking lying, white man. Alright, I'm gonna cut this and make the next video probably gonna be the final video. Oh, it's a lot.